Hi coaches! First of all, no, this is not the center. Welcome to my home. Due to time constraints, I wasn't able to film at the center, so I promise that I will be more professional next time. So the first thing that you're going to do is administer a practice test. Practice test A. Level 1 is for IG2 and level 2 is for IG4. You give them exactly 3 minutes to answer the practice test. After 3 minutes, stop the time. They probably won't be able to finish. They probably will have a lot of questions. Don't entertain their questions yet because the test was designed to be hard. So check the answers quickly with them, but don't explain the answers. And then you would say something like, show me with your fingers how many points you got right. Okay, raise your hand if you want to do better on your tests. Right, I believe that we can all do better on our tests if we try a little bit harder, if we use the right techniques. Today, I'm going to tell you 3 secrets, 3 ways that you can be better on your tests. First, what's the first thing that you should do when you get your test paper? Call on like 1 or 2 learners. Right, actually the first thing that you should do is read the instructions. It's very important that when you get your test, you read all of the instructions and you try to see how many types of tests are there in my test here. So if I'm answering this practice test, I would say, okay, so the first test is to write down the mistake in the sentence and then correct it. The second one is to write the correct pronoun. The third one is to identify uncountable and countable. The fourth one is to list all the verbs in the whole test. Okay, and then I would check, is there anything at the back? No, that's for later, so there's nothing to answer. Okay, so there are 4 different kinds of tests. So when you read the instructions, make sure that you're reading all of the instructions and that you're checking all of the parts so that you don't miss anything. This is important so that you know how long the test is and you don't spend too much time on one part. Okay, now a second question for you. What should you do if you see a question that's hard? What should you do? Call on a learner. If you see a question that's hard, skip it. Move on to the next question. What do I mean? If I'm reading this and the first test says, write the mistake in the sentence, then write the word that will make it correct. I read the first sentence and it says, Jojo and Popo practices all day yesterday. I'm not sure what the mistake in the sentence is. I don't skip it right away, but I should read it a second time. Jojo and Popo practices all day yesterday. Maybe it's practices? And then give yourself 10 seconds to think of the answer. Try to solve the problem. Practices, and maybe it should be practice. Jojo and Popo practice all day yesterday. Maybe. But it doesn't sound so right, maybe. So you give yourself 10 seconds. If after 10 seconds I still don't know the answer, move on to the next question. So spend only 10 seconds on one answer. Why is this important? Because if you spend too much time answering the first question, then if you spend 2 minutes answering the first question, you're only going to have 1 minute to answer all of the other questions. And it's not a very good use of your time. So if you see hard questions, skip it. Last, when you finish answering a test, what should you do? Call on a couple of learners. When you finish answering a test, make sure that you check your answers. What do I mean? When you check your answers, don't just make sure that you answered everything. Make sure, first of all, that you followed all of the instructions. So maybe I'll say, write the part A, write the mistake in the sentence, then write the word that made it correct. Yeah, okay, I did that. The mistake in the word, the mistake in the word, the mistake in the word. Part 2. Write the correct pronoun. Write. Oh, I didn't write the check if my pronoun is a subject pronoun. I can do that now. See, so I'm able to catch the mistakes that I make before I submit it and before we check it. That's why it's important to check, first of all, that you followed all the instructions. Second, that you were able to try to answer all of the numbers. So maybe I'll say, oh yeah, I wasn't able to answer number 1, Jojo and Popo practices all day yesterday. Let me try again now. And then maybe it will come to you. Maybe you'll get the answer again. Oh, you'll finally get the answer rather. So make sure that you try to answer everything. And last, especially if it's a math test, make sure that you solved all the answers properly and correctly. So at the end of the test, don't just say, Coach, finished, or done, but try to review your answers, check that you followed all instructions, that you answered all questions, and that you solved properly. So when you're trying to remember, what should I do again? What did Coach Mara tell me? Just remember these 3 steps. Number 1, read. Read the instructions, read all instructions, and read how hard or what kind of test it is. Number 2 is skip the hard questions. If you see a hard question, spend 10 seconds on it, then skip. Read, skip, check. Read, skip, check. Check your answers. Check that you followed instructions and that you tried to answer all the questions. Read, skip, check. That's it. Once you've finished discussing the theory, you say something like, raise your hand if you think that you can do better on your tests, of course. Okay, now I'm going to give you that chance, that opportunity right now. I'm going to give you a second practice test and you'll have the same amount of time to answer it, but try to read, skip, and check really quickly, and let's see if you can do better. So distribute practice test B and then give them the same 3 minutes to answer and see how you go, if you're able to get better results. Yeah, so that is session 2. Afterwards, they continue with their isolated practice, so the worksheets, and then the session ends with the English checkup, which is in the same file as the challenge. That is the English review for this week. Thanks for watching, coaches!